In it is involved an innate moral repugnance to the doing of a dishonorable act, which moral repugnance scarcely or not at all exists in the I-ski-ne. He states that I-dos would always restrain a good man from an unworthy act, while I-ski-ne might sometimes restrain a bad one. Synonyms of the New Testament, London, 1961, pages 64, 65. Thus, the conscience is especially involved in the restraining effect implied in I-dos. Before God. With regard to modesty, in no texto acute miritra longo, modesty 423 in what to boast. Boastfulness is the opposite of modesty. The rule is, may a stranger, and not your own mouth, praise you. May a foreigner, and not your own lips, do so. PR 27. To Jehovah's own words are, let not the wise man brag about himself because of his wisdom, and let not the mighty man brag about himself because of his mightiness. Let not the rich man brag about himself because of his riches. But let the one bragging about himself brag about himself because of this very thing, the having of insight and the having of knowledge of me, that I am Jehovah, the one exercising loving kindness, justice and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I do take delight. J 9. 23, 24. Compare PR 12. 9. 16. 18, 19. God's regard for modest ones. The Apostle Paul shows God's regard for the modest ones and also cites his own conduct in the congregation as exemplary of such modest attitude. He wrote to the Christians at Corinth, for you behold his calling of you, brothers, that not many wise in a fleshly way were called, not many powerful, not many of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world, that he might put the wise men to shame. And God chose the weak things of the world, that he might put the strong things to shame. And God chose the ignoble things of the world and the things looked down upon, the things that are not, that he might bring to nothing the things that are, in order that no flesh might boast in the sight of God. Just as it is written, he that boasts, let him boast in Jehovah. And so I, when I came to you, brothers, did not come with an extravagance of speech or of wisdom declaring the sacred secret of God to you. For I decided not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ, and him impaled. And I came to you in weakness and in fear and with much trembling. And my speech and what I preached were not with persuasive words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of spirit and power, that your faith might be, not in men's wisdom, but in God's power. 1 Co 1. 26. 2. 5. Do not go beyond the things written. Later in his letter Paul emphasized the need for modesty on the part of all, just as he himself had displayed modesty, a proper evaluation of himself. The Corinthians had fallen into the trap of boasting in certain men, such as Apollos, and even in Paul himself. Paul corrected them, telling them that they were fleshly, not spiritual, in doing this, and said, now, brothers, these things I have transferred so as to apply to myself and Apollos for your good, that in our case you may learn the rule. Do not go beyond the things that are written, that is, do not go beyond the limits that the scriptures set for humans in their attitude toward one another and toward themselves, in order that you may not be puffed up individually in favor of the one against the other. For who makes you to differ from another? Indeed, what do you have that you did not receive? If, now, you did indeed receive it, why do you boast as though you did not receive it? Keeping this in mind will prevent haughtiness and boastfulness in regard to oneself or another as to family descent, race, color or nationality, physical beauty, ability, knowledge, mental brilliance, and so forth. 1 Co 4. 6, 7. Jesus Christ's example. Jesus Christ is the finest example of modesty. He told his disciples that he could not do a single thing of his own initiative, but only what he beheld the Father doing, and that his Father is greater than he is. Job 5. 19, 30. 14. 28. Jesus refused to accept titles not due him. When a ruler called him good teacher, Jesus replied, why do you call me good? Nobody is good, except one, God. Luke 18. 18, 19. And he told his disciples that as slaves to Jehovah they should not feel puffed up, either over things accomplished in God's service or because of their worth to God. Rather, they should have the attitude, when they had done all o textoi acute miritra longo, malada 424 shocking to decency, to the moral susceptibilities of the congregation, causing offense to some. This counsel as to dress would shed further light on Jehovah's attitude toward the proper view and use of other material possessions that a Christian may have. See humility. Maladamo middle dot lidar from a root meaning give birth. Become father to. Ba. One of the cities in southern Judah allotted to Simeon. Malada remained in the hands of this tribe at least down till David's reign. Jos 15. 21, 26. 19. 1, 2. 1 ch 4. 24, 28, 31 After the exile, Judeans resettled the site. Ne 11. 25, 26. The site of Malada has not been identified with any certainty. Menlek Molek from a root meaning reign as king or king, but with the vowels abosheth, shame, to denote abhorrence. A deity particularly associated with the Ammonites 1 K 11. 5, 7, 33. Possibly the same as Moloch Ak 7. 43. Compare Am 5. 26 and Milcom. 1 K 11. 5, 33 at Jeremiah 32. 35. Molech is referred to in parallel with Baal, suggesting, if not an identification, at least some connection between the two. Numerous authorities regard Molech as a title rather than the name of a specific deity, and therefore, the thought has been advanced that the designation Molech may have been applied to more than one god. It is generally agreed that the Malcham referred to 2 Samuel 12. 30 and 1 Chronicles 20. 2 is the idol image of the Ammonite god Milcom, or Melech, although the Hebrew term could be rendered their king. Compare KJ. As. Earlier in the biblical account the Ammonite king is referred to by his name, Nun 2 10. 1-4. Hence, it is reasonable to conclude that the name, Nun rather than Melcham would have appeared in the scriptural record if the king rather than the idol were intended. Also, it is thought unlikely that a king would have worn a crown weighing about 34 kilograms 92 pounds t. For the same reason it has been suggested that David placed Malcham's crown on his head only temporarily, perhaps to denote his victory over the false god. According to the reading of the Targum, which has been adopted by numerous translators, the crown had only one precious jewel. This has given rise to the view that it was the precious jewel, rather than the crown itself, that came to be on David's head. Child sacrifice to Molech. God's law to Israel prescribed the death penalty for anyone, even an alien resident, who would give his offspring to Molech. The 22-5 Nonetheless, apostate Israelites, both in the kingdom of Judah and in the 10-tribe kingdom, passed their offspring through the fire. 2 Kai 17. 17, 18. As 23. 4, 36-39. Their passing through the fire to Molech has been regarded by some as signifying a purification ritual by means of which children were devoted or dedicated to Molech. Others understand this to mean actual sacrificing. That the Canaanites and apostate Israelites did sacrifice their children, there can be no question. The 12. 31. PS 106. 37, 38 King Ahaz of Judah proceeded to burn up his son's son, see in the fire. 2 ch 28. 3 The parallel passage, 2 Kings 16. 3, reads. Even his own son he made pass through the fire. This indicates that passing through the fire is at least sometimes synonymous with sacrificing. Likely, however, the worship of Molech was not always and everywhere the same. For example, King Solomon, under the influence of his foreign wives, built high places to Molech and other deities, but not until the time of Ahaz is mention made of child sacrifice. 1 K 11. 7, 8 Undoubtedly, if this abhorrent practice had existed earlier, it would have been denounced along with the other forms of idolatry existing during the reigns of the various kings. For this reason some commentators favor the view that the expression to pass through the fire originally applied to a purification ritual and later came to signify actual sacrifice. The passing to Melek mentioned in the O Textoi Acute Miritra Longo, Molten C 425. The view has been advanced that the Melek to whom children were sacrificed had the form of a man but the head of a bull. The image is said to have been heated red hot and the children cast into its outstretched arms, thus to fall into the flaming furnace below. This conception is largely based on the description of the Carthaginian Kronos or Moloch given by the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus of the 1st century BCE. Diodorus of Sicily, XX, 14, 4-6. Regarding the practice of astrology in connection with worship of Melek, see astrologers. Mole rat Heb. Choled. A rodent measuring 15 to 30 centimeters 6 to 12 inches in length. The mole rat Spalaxerantpashi resembles a short-legged, tailless, and neckless cylindrical lump of soft, thick fur, generally a yellowish grey-brown color. The head is recognizable by the furless muzzle and 2 pairs of large protruding teeth. Under the law, the mole rat was unclean for food. Law 11. 29. Although numerous translations render Cho-led as weasel as KJRS, there is a basis for preferring mole rat. In Arabic, a language related to Hebrew, a very similar word, kald, means mole rat. Also, choled may be related to a post-biblical Hebrew term signifying dig or hollow out. This would harmonize with the mole rat's characteristic digging. Mole rats live underground and dig subterranean sleeping quarters and large storage chambers. These creatures subsist on vegetable matter, primarily on roots and bulbs. Thus they differ from true moles, which feed on insects and earthworms and are not considered native to Palestine. Moled from a root meaning give birth. Become father to. Ba. A man of Judah and descendant of Hezron through Dramiel. Moled was the son of Abishah by his wife Abiel. 1 ch 2. 4, 5, 9, 25-29. Moloch. C. Melek. Molten C. Copper C.